OK, well, let's stay with the Education Secretary's plans to get all children in England back into school in September. Joining me now is Simon Kidwell, head of Hertford Manor Primary in Cheshire and NAHT, executive member and representative. That's the Head Teachers Union. Very good to talk to you. Mr Kidwell, well, tell me first of all, as a head teacher looking at your school and looking, no doubt, as you have, at these new rules and regulations, can you cope with them?
Well, I don't think the guidance is that different than what we've had before. We've had over 30 documents coming into school. So what the document does is it pulls together all those different bits of guidance. My school currently is open for over 50% of the children in every year group. So the things we've been learning over the last 5 weeks are just going to be refined and then implemented in September. So in terms of the guidance, it's extensive. It gives some flexibility for head teachers to make individual decisions. But I think we should all be able to work towards having full reopening with the guidance we've read today, which is very different than the previous guidance we've had, which has sometimes been contradictory.
OK, that's good to hear. But, I mean, space isn't an issue. It is clearly in some schools if they're going to go up to full capacity.
Well, the space is a space. I mean, we were looking at relaxing the guidelines around distancing for pupils, and we're also looking at having full class sizes. So the big thing for me is making sure that the adults can space themselves out. So that's the adults that work in school, making sure that the staff room isn't used for a large amount of people. We've also noted that the beginning and end of the school day is a congestion point. So we've stretched our opening times. So our parents can now drop them off over a 20-minute period. So that's really helped with the adults distancing.
What about the safety issue, though? Do you have continuing concerns about that?
The safety, I mean, in terms of what we're asked to do is, so there are some hierarchies that we have to follow. So the first thing we have to do is make sure that people who are showing symptoms don't come to work or come to school. Second one is about hand washing, and we've installed 37 additional hand washing stations in our school. Also making sure that enhanced cleaning happens, and we've got additional cleaners working in the school day. So we feel that those sort of things have worked really well so far. We've not had an outbreak in my school or my locality neither. However, there will be an outbreak, and we've just got to make sure that we go and make sure that public health people then go and give us the best guidance about closing either year groups or closing the whole school.
Yeah, and what about parents, though? A lot of them still have these safety concerns. Can you reassure them?
Yeah, there's, I mean, parents in my school were about 50% capacity. I know in other schools it's lower than that. In other schools it's quite high. I had a meeting with 60 of our new starter parents last night on Zoom, and I've given them opportunity to say, look, if you're still anxious about starting, please give us a ring. We can talk to you about all the measures we're putting in place to go and reduce the risk. We can't guarantee safety in schools, but we can make sure that parents understand these are the measures we're putting in, and these are the things we've got to do. However, I think that's the government's job. The governments have got to go and be very clear about why it's safe to open schools fully now, where it's not fully, it's not safe at the moment. So the governments have got a big job to do in convincing some communities that the measures that they're asking schools to take are going to make sure that schools can be as safe as possible.
Well, the government's very clear. You say it's the government's job. It's very clear at this point that all pupils should go back to school, and by implication then waving quite a big stick there, because of course you're breaking the law, aren't you, if you keep your child away from school with no good reason?
Well, I think schools work very well in partnership with their parents, and actually waving a big stick at parents who are anxious and don't want to attend isn't the right way to do it. It's about working in partnership. It's about talking to the parents about these are the things that we've done to make sure they're safe. And it's also saying that we've been open already. We've been open for 14 weeks in our school, and we've been open for 5 weeks for wider groups. So it's making sure we work with parents, because waving a big stick at them isn't going to help if they're very anxious about sending their children back.
So the threat of fines, it's there by implication. It's not overt at the moment. You don't think that's a good idea?
Fine should always be a last resort, because fining parents always goes and brings a wedge between the school and parents. So there's better ways of actually encouraging excellent attendance rather than fining parents. So hopefully we'll be able to work with all our parents to encourage them to start attending school.
And what about, we haven't talked about the teaching staff. They're the ones that are cheek by jowl, or, well, let's say at least, well, separated slightly from the students, from the pupils. But do they still have these safety worries?
I think staff, all our staff have been back since the start of June. They were anxious before they started, but once they started teaching their children again, I've seen those anxieties lift away because school is different. We have got the staggered start, we have got the enhanced hand washing regime, we have got additional cleaning going on in school. So I think once staff actually are working with the students and seeing that we can put in some protective measures, I've seen the staff anxiety go and reduce each day that they've been back. And our staff had a meeting tonight, and our staff are looking forward to seeing all the pupils back in September.
And what about this issue, Mr. Kidwell, of catching up? I mean, some of the pupils will have missed 6 months of schooling by September. It's not just what you can teach then, it's what they've missed. Are there any provisions, are there enough provisions being made for using this summer period to do some of that?
Well, we've been allocated funding by the government, which is new funding, which is welcome. But I very much feel that we should be using that funding across the year because summer schools are very expensive. The children who need to attend often don't attend. So it's far better that we have that money over the next academic year to put in individual group tuition and go and spend that money as we see fit. But teachers are experts in making sure that we plug gaps in education. And I'm pretty convinced that the staff at my school and the wider schools in my community go and do an excellent job of plugging those gaps. So I think the extra money is welcome, but it's great that we can spend it over 12 months rather than just doing a summer school, which we know from previous evidence isn't that effective.
So overall, Mr. Kidwell, returning to what you told me in your first answer, you believe the government is getting its act together here. You refer to a bit of a mishmash of rules, regulation and guidance early on, but this seems like it's thought out and can work to you.
It's certainly, there's some schools have got a lot of work to do. Secondary schools, which have only got about 6% of their children back in at the moment, there's an awful lot of work to do over the next 2 weeks. I welcome the fact that the guidance has landed at the same time as the Secretary of State has made an announcement, so that's a good thing. We've got some work to do, but actually the guidance shares the same ambition that we all have, is getting children back to school in as safe a way as possible.
Simon Kidwell, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for sharing your experience with us, and best of luck to you and those pupils. And let me tell you, on today's podcast, Sky News Daily podcast, there's an in-depth analysis of the plans to get all children back to school.